What's up, gals and pals? It's your boy Vino Valentino, and welcome back to 60-Second Cocktails. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the YouTube PubCrawl, and I'm so honored and excited to have the lovely Jenna of JEN N TONIC. Jenna, say hello, everybody.
Oh, hello.
That's the way she's supposed to do it. I forgot about that. That's her little thing. I love it. It makes me laugh every time. The funny part is you crack yourself up every time you do it. It kills me.
Yeah. Well, it started out as a joke.
Uh-huh.
And then we just had to keep it going.
Then you guys ran with it. That's hysterical. It works. Yeah. It's nice. And then you got the shirt and everything too.
Yeah.
So, there you go. Nice. Well, Jenna, listen, thanks for being on. But before we get into all the niceties and the questions, what's Jenna drinking?
I am drinking a Vucare, which is one of my most favorite cocktails.
Tell us what's in the Vucare.
Vucare is equal parts of rye whiskey, cognac, as well as sweet vermouth. And then you do a couple dashes each of Pouchards and Angostura and a spoonful of Benedictine. That's
a mouthful and a very delicious cocktail. I like to usually have a nice, neat cocktail when I do this. So I'm going to do a little Don Q Gran Añejo. That's a Puerto Rican rum, and it's quite delicious. Mm-hmm. So let me pour myself some of that. You know, Mr. Vino is a Puerto Rican and loves his Puerto Rican rum. All right, Jenna, so thanks so much for being on. Cheers to you.
Cheers.
And let's get it cracking. So good. So good. All right, Jen. So here's the deal. Here, you know what happens now, right? It's time for the fast four. 6 questions. You've got 60 seconds. Next season, I'm going to up it, though. I think it's too easy. I gotta make it a little tougher for people.
I don't know. I'm stressed out just thinking about it right now.
The funny thing is people get so nervous about it. I'm like, it's six questions. All right, let's go. All right, guys. All right. So Jenna, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. And favorite cocktail?
Vucare.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You answered that 5 minutes ago. Favorite spirit?
Whiskey.
All right. Your favorite hangover food?
Tacos.
Okay. Your favorite bar?
So it's closed now, the Jinx in Savannah, Georgia.
Savannah, Georgia. All right, cool. Your favorite, all right, how about this, rum or tequila?
Favorite, well, I've actually been really into the Appleton that I've been using lately. I love that.
I love
it's
Appleton.
18-year aged.
So is that your answer?
That is my answer.
All right, good. All right, and last, no, you got one more. You got 20 seconds. You got plenty of time. Your favorite YouTube channel, not called 60-Second Cocktails, and it does not have to be a cocktail channel.
Okay. Evan and Caitlin.
Evan and Caitlin.
Yeah, it's they do a lot of projects like crafts and things.
Oh, cool. It's always cool. Like, and you nailed that, by the way. You had like 10 seconds left, so you're good. You're good. All right, so that's interesting. Like, you know, when I love talking to all the different creators on in our niche who their favorite channel is not a cocktail channel, right? Because it goes to show not so much that we don't like anybody else, but we are more than just mixologists. There's a lot more to us, and we have varied interests and stuff like that. So it's cool because I've never heard of these guys, and a lot of the channel you're talking about, and a lot of the guys have said stuff that I never heard of. Some did say some stuff that I heard of, like Rob from Rob's Home Bar. His favorite is Babish, and stuff like that. But there've been a few I was like, oh, I never heard of that, and so it's cool to kind of get that immediate insight into what people are into and stuff, So Jenna, let's talk, because you and I actually have a pretty similar background. We both have a hospitality background. We both have an events background. And we have a beverage background. So it's like a cool kind of turn, I guess, in that sense, that we both have that background. So, but dude, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us where you're from, and a little bit of your mixology background.
Yeah, sure. So I'm from Florida, born and raised in Orlando, Florida. I worked I did standalone restaurants for a long time, all areas. Mm-hmm. And then I was at the Swan and Dolphin Resort in Orlando. So I worked there for 12 years. And my last position there was catering sales. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of different than any other property. I know that you worked in hotels as well. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So
I worked in venues, but not necessarily hotels.
Okay. So the catering manager there doesn't turn it over, as you would experience in a lot of times with catering sales. Yeah. So I operated also. Yeah. And that property to this day is very big on educating their staff and promoting from within. So a lot of what I learned about beverages, I learned working there. And while I was there, they paid for me to do a lot of different trainings. I was able to get my sommelier while I was there.
Oh, did you? Cool. Nice.
Yeah. Just second level. I don't think I'll go any further than that.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah. That's my background, actually. Wine is my like expertise, but I never went to get my sommelier certification.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's a great experience. If you have the opportunity, I recommend it. But I think third level, 2 was hard for me. 2 is rough. So third and fourth, no thanks. So that's my background. Yeah. I did that. And then I moved to Texas about 6 weeks before COVID hit.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I took an opportunity here in Texas and was immediately furloughed. So it was interesting. Didn't really know that many people out here, but yeah, I have made it work.
Great. Well, I know you're back working again, right? You're back in the hotel biz, right?
Yes, I just started back last week.
That's awesome. Good for you.
As a assistant director of food and beverage. So working on the outlet side, more in restaurants. Cool. Challenge.
That's great. I mean, listen, I don't, not too many people can say they've made it back that have been in hospitality. It's still, you're seeing more restaurants coming back and stuff like that. But hotels have probably been back the earliest. But events in general, my particular thing has not been something that's come back very strong at all, especially in New York City. So it's good to hear when someone kind of gets back and is able to make a living again. All right. Well, anyway, so tell us a little bit of about what made you want to start, a YouTube channel. Like, what was it that triggered that, that idea to do that? Because it's an undertaking. It's not something you kind of just wing it. I think some people do go into it thinking it's going to be super easy and they're going to have instant success. But if you did any research, you'll know that it's a tough nut.
It's tough. So during COVID, I was, I think like a lot of us, very down and wanting to do something that still had to do with my passion and, keep sharp. So, and something that I always enjoyed when I was home, I would make some weird creation and I would usually after a few text one of my friends, be like, this is what I made, write it down so I don't have to remember in the morning. And so I started to think about I do that a lot where I have a friend over and I'm like, hey, have you heard of this drink? And did you know this about it? And I am a big history nerd in general. And so I've always wanted to learn about whatever it is that I'm drinking or eating or doing. So when I was talking to my friends, I was like, hey, I think I want to start a YouTube channel and just talk about the kind of stuff that I talk about with you guys. But put it out there and see how it's received. Yeah. And I've really enjoyed it, but you're right. It is definitely an undertaking.
It's difficult. Sure. I mean, because I think there's 2 ways that you can approach YouTube. Is one of them is just something to do. It's a little bit of a hobby and stuff like that. But, when you realize that there's an opportunity to really make something out of it, something legitimate, a career or at least a side hustle and stuff like that, you start to take it a little more seriously. And that's when you realize how difficult it is, trying to remain on an upload schedule and trying to, get those views up, subscriber numbers up and, getting people to really kind of engage with your channel and stuff like that. And, sometimes it can feel like you're, just preaching to the choir and it's just, the rest of the community that's paying attention, but no one else really is, what I'm saying? It can get in your head, because I think because of the different rates of success that you see too, right? Like some people are skyrocketing, some people are not. Some people have, a tremendous, cinematography and some things are really basic. And, so when you do that kind of comparison thing, it can definitely get in your head. But as long as you realize that, you're seeing some success, your numbers are growing. I know yours are. That's enough to kind of keep you motivated and keep going,
I agree completely. And you've been a big, how do I want to say, you've really helped me to see the community, and I appreciate you bringing me into it.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a big proponent for that because my idea is success breeds success, right? So if you do well, I do well, we all do well, as long as we all are continuing to support each other. I think it's important to support each other. And, I think for the niche itself, I always say this, you look at some niches like the cooking niche and, gaming and stuff like that. They're so big and a lot of those guys work together to really help blow the niche up. And I think that's something that is only going to benefit this community. And, then you see the growth in the community. I mean, everyone that's kind of part of that little circle of ours, they're seeing consistent numbers and stuff, even if it's not skyrocketing, it's still there and stuff. So it feels good to see everyone kind of, Steve, the bartender, just gave Carl from Alchemix a shout out, and he got a nice bump from that. And so that's cool when you see that, like even the big dogs, showing that kind of love and support, it really, it makes you feel good about the future for the niche,
I agree.
Yeah. So,
sure.
So now tell me about this history buff thing, because that's one thing I love about you too. Is you're a big history. I'm a big history buff myself. But just like I love like American history and stuff like that, and I love cocktail history too. But my real history stuff is the like I said, American history. So is that something specifically alcohol, like cocktails, or is it just a big history buff period?
History in general. I'm actually kind of a sucker for British history.
British history.
So yeah, British monarchs is a big thing that I nerd out on.
Mm-hmm.
I love King Henry VIII, and I know a lot about him and all of his wives. I don't know, I just think it's great. So I love that. I nerd out on that. Civil War, American history, nerd out on that big time.
World War II is my wheelhouse, big time. World War II, Civil War, slavery, Native American studies. I did that in school, so that stuff really, it fascinates the crap out of me. And you always feel like you learn. There's always more to learn, even if you've been really kind of researching a specific thing. Is there any part or particular period in the cocktail history that you really find the most fascinating?
Prohibition.
Yeah.
Pre-prohibition to after. Mm-hmm. It's nuts to me to think about what happened to cocktails. So beforehand you had guys like Jerry Thomas creating these amazing cocktails, and people were really starting to experience this enhanced beverage. And then you see prohibition hit, and everybody's drinking this awful stuff that they're getting, they're making themselves. And so they're just putting whatever in it.
The bathtub booze and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you see everybody's got this kind of horrible palate afterwards. So then they're creating these juice-based drinks and stuff that takes us almost until the late 90s to get over.
I mean, a lot of that was done though to mask the taste of bad alcohol. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's what it is. But but at the same time, it did lead to some good cocktails. There are some cocktails that are from that period that ended up kind of, becoming staples and stuff. But it was back in the days, it was pure booze, it was sugar, a sweetener, and maybe some bitters and stuff like that. So I love prohibition cocktails. I love pre-prohibition stuff. I love old school cocktails. Mm-hmm. I love spirit forward cocktails. I know you're a big fan of those also.
Yes.
One of my favorite books is the 3 ingredient cocktail book. Because I love that book because that's what cocktails were. They were never complicated as they are now, but it's funny enough, in their simplicity, they were so sophisticated at the same time. And that's what I really loved about the old school stuff, And yeah, I agree with you. Did you ever watch the Ken Burns Prohibition documentary? Oh no. My God, good? You have to watch that.
All right.
I love anything Ken Burns. If you're a history buff, you'll love anything Ken Burns, and his Prohibition documentary is absolutely fascinating. It's long. I don't know if you ever watch any Ken Burns stuff. It's like 15 hours, but it's like you can't stop watching it. I think this one's maybe 6 hours or something like that. But it really breaks down, the Temperance movement and everything that just kind of made it all happen and stuff. And, the mob influence
that came out of it.
Like that, you know what I mean? So, I mean, that's what strengthened the mob in this country was prohibition,
Right.
So, it really touches on all that and then the kind of resurgence of the cocktail and stuff like that. So it's really cool to watch. So so if there's something you want to tell people like about your channel, if someone said to you, "Hey Jen, what's your channel about? Like what is your mission? What is your goal with your channel? What would you say it is?"
Well, my goal would be to show you easy classic cocktails and tell you the history behind them.
Okay, cool. So you're I mean, similar to me. I wanted simple cocktails, fast and easy, obviously 60 seconds. Mm-hmm. One thing I do want to touch more into history. I think I do mention I kind of glaze over it. I always worry about retention and trying to getting right into it and stuff like that. So that's something I'm trying to reconfigure going forward. I think the thing about this is you have to constantly think about how to improve, right? Like you're always thinking about how to improve, whether it's just your set or the kind of cocktails you make, or the presentation, or the content that that you're providing, stuff like that? I mean, do you look at your channel and say, okay, I'm good the way it is, or do you want to, try to make more improvements?
I just recently changed my format. Actually, I was doing, because I know, people like you and me could listen to, information about history for 6 hours, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't want to listen to it for that long. So a lot of my earlier videos, there's 5 or 6 minutes of me just explaining the history behind whatever the cocktail is.
Yeah.
And so I've changed it to where now I get right into the cocktail, but then I talk about the history while I'm making it, because that was a little bit of the feedback that I got, that it was just too long. So I'm going to see how that works.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you look at Leandro over at Educated Barfly, he kind of changed his format, where now he kind of goes right into the cocktail, and then he'll do a little history afterwards. So like, if you want to stick around for the history, go for it, I get that. And I think it's probably the best way to go about it, but it does stink because it's not the way I would want to present it. When I was working, like I always told the story of the cocktail first, and people loved it. But I think it's different in person, because you have the person's full undivided attention, versus, in front of a computer or an iPhone, where they can kind of just go to the next thing and stuff like that. So I get that retention is different when you're in front of someone versus just online. You kind of have to maybe get to the point, and if they really like the way you presented the cocktail, then maybe they'll stick around for the story.
And I did a lot of seminars working for Swan and Dolphin, and that was the format that I used then. So, and that's why I thought it would be successful, because like you said, when people are in front of you and they're engaged, they want to hear about the history.
Absolutely. Yeah. But
you're right. When they're in front of a computer and they're clicking and they have all these different options, it's hard to keep them around.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, we're also in a niche that's quickly growing, and there's a lot of other people making cocktails, and, you're not the only person making an old fashioned.
Right.
I think it's tough. It's tough. I think personality is a huge part of this success on YouTube, because we're all making similar cocktails for the most part. There's a certain number of cocktails we're all making, right? And so how do you grab the attention of the viewer, if you're just going to make the cocktail, right? Like, how do you get them to get to know you and to really, engage with you, if all you're doing is going right into a cocktail? It doesn't feel like that opportunity is there if you just run into it. And that's what the history part is. It's really kind of you talking and having that sit down with someone. But it's tough. It's tough. So listen, obviously you've been in the industry for a long time, and you've been doing this cocktail thing. Now you just started the channel, and you've been in hospitality for a while, but when did you start like actually mixing cocktails?
So I started with wine, like you. Yeah. So I was doing that for years, and I didn't really get into mixing cocktails until I got my certified somm, because you had to learn so much about cocktails when you did it. So it's been 7-8 years that I've been really into it.
Oh, cool.
It's not long at all.
Yeah. So, the funny thing is, so you're obviously, now you're doing this cocktail thing and stuff like that. Do you think you'll ever introduce wines into your show somehow? Is it always just going to be kind of a cocktail thing? I've had people say to me, hey, you maybe should bring some of the wine stuff into it. And I've thought about it, but it's a very different audience. It really, it's not the same audience to me at all.
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of great wine-based cocktails.
There is that.
There's a lot of great history with wine.
That's the beauty of it.
So, I mean, it could be a possibility. I definitely don't want to limit myself.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, while yes, this is a lot of work, like you said, we started this because we wanted to have fun and we're passionate about it. So whatever that means for the channel is what I want to do.
Yeah, true. I mean, yeah, you want to continue to kind of have fun with it, And I don't think that, and I think that a lot of times people that aren't into wine, it's more just a lack of understanding or knowledge of it too. You know what I mean? So I think if you kind of introduce it to them in a way, cocktail people love the same thing that wine people like. They love to hear about, flavor profiles and notes and, stuff like that, and how it works with this and that in your palate. They love to hear about that stuff too. So I think educating them to the extent that it doesn't overwhelm them, I think is not a bad thing, especially like you said, some great wine cocktails, I think is a great way to kind of, play that divide, It really is. So Jen, what is what's the cocktail that really made you fall in love with cocktails? I mean, what's that one that, not your favorite cocktail, I'm talking about, what's the one that made you kind of go, I'm into this?
It was the Black Manhattan.
A black Manhattan. All right. Tell
Yeah.
people what that is. Tell them what that.
So a Manhattan would be whiskey with sweet vermouth, and a black Manhattan, you would take the sweet vermouth out and you would add Averna, which is an Amaro.
Is that
it's
what
a darker Amaro?
Yeah, right
yeah.
There.
There it is.
There you go.
That's my Amaro shelf.
That's your Amaro shelf?
Amari.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, the whiskey spirit forward cocktails, that's my MO. And I remember when I started learning about all the different type of Amaro that were out there, and then somebody was like, you can put it in a Manhattan. I was like, what? And I got so excited. And that really made me fall in love with cocktails.
So it wasn't like someone made this actually was like something you just made on your own. Someone told you could do it, but you made this. So it wasn't like, you went to some restaurant and you had a cocktail and it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. It was something that you actually kind of built yourself.
No, I believe this was at the Swan and Dauphin. I believe that was the first time that I tried it. Like I said, when I started there, I was 25, started there as a server and worked my way. They really educated me. They taught me a lot about food and beverage and promoted me. And I remember, I think I was out to dinner there at one of the restaurants, and they were like, have you had this? Because it's kind of new, it's not been out that long. And I remember, because I was mostly drinking wine, heavy reds, Italian reds. And so they're like, you like whiskey. Have you tried this cocktail? And I remember when that hit me, and that kind of changed me. It started getting me thinking, well, if you can sub out this for this, what else can you start subbing out?
Yeah. It's like doing all the different riffs and variations. That's the fun of the cocktails for me, is, taking classic recipes and understanding why they work. That's my big thing. Like I always want to understand why they work. Like, why do these ingredients work so well together? And then trying to, and that comes from my wine background. And, something I always I try to tell people that are new to cocktails is, one thing you should do is taste every spirit by itself before you pour it into anything. Figure out what it tastes like, because the minute you learn what it tastes like, what the notes are, and whether it's sweet or whether it's dry, whatever, then you can kind of start putting things together in your head. It's like a puzzle. Then you're like, oh, you know what? No fashion. If I put this in it, or I do this, it's gonna actually work really well. Or at least I want to try and see if it works well. Because you still got to know like the ratios and stuff like that. But ultimately, once you know what things taste like, then you're gonna have a better idea of how to make cocktails. And that all stems from me, being in the wine business and, having to really, learn your palate and understanding all the different elements of wine and stuff. That once you do that, going into cocktails, it's not, I wouldn't say it's a breeze, but it's definitely easier.
I was like, I think it's kind of an easy transition when you have that background, because your mind is already set that way.
And you're
totally right. If you know the classic recipe, then it's very easy to be like, oh, well, you have 1 ounce of this. What happens if I change it out for this?
Exactly. And what you have, and when you have like that framework of cocktails, there's like a certain, there's like the 5 families of cocktails, right? The mafia of cocktails, right? And you work off of all of those to make all the different variations that you have basically nowadays. And so as long as and something great comes out of it. And that's that to me is I love that. I love to sit here and just look at my thing and say, I wonder. Exactly. I tell you. So that's something I always love to do. And, in my previous life, that was one of my, one of the things I had to do was a lot of specialty cocktails. And so I always enjoyed that, because the 2 things I enjoyed most was food and wine pairing, which I absolutely love. I miss that so much. And do specialty cocktails, and which is fortunate I get to do that here, especially with our challenges and stuff like that. We get to create new cocktails. But that's something I always really enjoy, because it's a challenge for you too. And sometimes you impress yourself. You're like, oh my God. Oh, if somebody tasted this, I'd be famous. You're like, this is amazing. Good job, Nina.
Well, I remember that sour that I did. I was surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, I had tasted it before I made it on, for the video, for the Valentine's that Rob did the flip with.
Rob made it. Yeah.
Yeah, he made it a flip.
That's right. Oh my God.
But I remember when I tasted it, and then when I did it on the channel, I think I changed the ratios just a little bit. And I remember being really surprised and like, oh, this is really good.
Yeah.
So I agree.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny too, because like I'm not to be like all arrogant, but I guess I'm at the point I'm not so much surprised anymore how good it came out, but I'm still just happy. You know, I'm like, oh, this is so cool. You know, so you're back in the business, thank God. How have you seen a change? Do you notice the way things operate now? I mean, I know Texas is different because it's wide open now and everything's kind of back to normal. Normal. But I know that things that definitely like companies are still doing things that they feel are best for the safety of everybody else. Have you seen the transition there?
So definitely Texas is open. Most businesses that you go into, though, still require a mask.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more difficult for them to enforce it now, obviously, with there not being the government behind it.
Yeah.
Where I am, it's corporate, or it's worldwide. So we're still requiring masks inside the building, which is very difficult to make happen. As far as what it looks like, and this is the property that I was at before COVID, it was shocking to walk back into on Monday morning and just see the differences, not only in all of the different signage. There's signage everywhere. Wear a mask, please wear a mask. There's sanitizing stations everywhere. There's the plastic shields up everywhere. Wow. The protocols are different for buffets, which I'm sure, I'm sure that was one of the first things that came across your mind when this all went down. Like, how are we going to do buffets now? There's a lot more grab and go, which, is not something that you normally want to do in hospitality, just because it's not the level of service.
Yeah, it's not at all.
Right. So a lot of that is happening now. And there's also a lot less staff. So there's a quarter of the staff doing the same amount of work.
Wow that's tough. It's actually surprising that I guess from everything I'm reading and learning from people, that they even went they even hired people at your level, because from what I understand, they're trying to keep it minimal and hire, more like just the kind of service staff and whatnot. So that's cool. I guess because Texas is moving in a different direction, I guess they felt the comfort in doing that,
They're getting to 100% occupancy on the weekends. Yeah, so, and there was a person in this role that actually moved on. So the opening was there. It wasn't. Okay, cool. So I got lucky. Yeah, for sure.
And they say the harder you work, the luckier you get, so I think that you earned it, even though you were off, it all worked out for you. You know what I mean? So Jen, let's talk drunk. Let's talk drunk stories. All right. Let's talk drinking stories. All right.
Should I get more alcohol?
Right? Now here's the thing. Right? So people like you and I who've been in hospitality. So the best drunk stories aren't always ours. Sometimes it's someone else's. And so, just give me a good drinking story, and the reality is, listen, you can even tell me just, not even, it doesn't even have to be a drunk story, just like a good drinking story. Like maybe, I always tell people like, for me, one of my most memorable, drinking stories was just like, it was this weird kind of moment where I was sitting on the beach in Puerto Rico having a pina colada, and like a feeling came over me, that I can't even put it into words. And it's not the first time I had a drink on the beach anywhere, but it was a feeling that day, like that everything's all right, and I never forget that moment. And so like, sometimes the drinking story is just that simple, and that memorable.
Okay. Well,
or it's falling down the stairs drunk, one or the other.
I won't tell those ones. Well, no, I would say it was a day. It was a whole day of drinking. So my very best friend in the whole world and I used to go to Savannah. So I lived in Orlando, Florida. Savannah was a 4-hour ride. So I was there 3 times a year. It was easy. And I remember the first time that I took my best friend there, and we were there for a weekend, and we had the best night. But I have this horrible habit of robot powering down when I've had too much to drink. I don't get sloppy. I don't cry. I just.
That's hysterical. I know those people. Trust me, I know them.
And we still talk about how mad she was mad at the time. She's not mad now. She really wanted to party. She was up, and we were out. And I remember we'd gone to a very, very tiny, because Savannah's historic, a lot of old houses that have been made into bars. And we went into this one little bar, and probably the distance between you and I is where the band was playing. And he was like, you will stay awake and you will listen to them. And there was one of those, where they play the box between their legs for the percussion. Yeah. So the guy was to the side of me, and I remember, she won't notice I'm asleep if I turn my head. So I did this. And I went to sleep. And I remember doing this to me, and I woke up and the guy's playing, and he's just looking at me like.
And that does not go over well with musicians when you fall asleep in front of them.
They
don't care how drunk you are. You know what I mean? They're like, really? The whole time you're playing
it.
That's funny. I always find it funny when I work and I see people drink, like so drunk they're asleep during an event. And I'm like, there is loud music, people, everything going on, and you find a way to fall asleep. You're done. You're gone. Like you got to be really gone. I mean, I remember one of the craziest things was it was a big gala. It was a fundraiser and for like young socialites. And at the end of the night, you know, everything's done, everything's gone, all the guests are gone. We think everything's good. And so we just do a bathroom check, just to make sure there's no one left in the bathrooms and stuff. And so everything seems fine. But the girl we sent was new, so she didn't think to open the stalls. And so about an hour passes and they go back into check and there's a girl in there, literally with her face in the toilet. Like her nose was this far. She was asleep. If she was an inch further in, she would have drowned to death. You know what I'm saying? And we're like, holy crap. And she and her friends, she was there with friends. And none of them we knew because we took her cell phone and like called someone. And they're like, oh, we didn't know where she was. We're like, are you serious? Like,
she almost died.
Your friend is almost dead and you just left. And so, I mean, people fall asleep in the weirdest places when they're drunk. And that was a hell of a, you know, and that was like, and that bathroom toilet had been used prior to her. I can tell you, because it was, when we pulled her head up, we were like, oh shit.
Get her out of here.
Yeah. I'm not sure why she passed out now, actually. I don't know if it was the alcohol. Oh man. So Jen, so one of the things, you know, one of the things I spoke to Jessica about, Jessica from A Savage Kitchen, who's one of the other great talents in his niche, is, you know, it's hard to ignore. You're one of the ladies, right? You're one of the few ladies in the niche, you know? And so when you first came into the niche, did you feel like and even as a woman in general making cocktails, did you feel any pressure to kind of just be, you know, I don't know, to compete and to kind of like show them that, you know, you're not, you know, just eye candy or whatever, and that you know, you really know how to make a cocktail and stuff. You know, is there ever that kind of subliminal kind of conscious thinking?
Going into it, I didn't have that thought. I thought, I'm going to be here doing me. This is what I'm about, and that's it. But what's interesting is that some of the feedback I get from different family and friends is, well, why don't you dress more sexy? Maybe that would, maybe that would get you more views on your channel. And like, first of all, why are you the one saying this to me? You know, like wear a lower cut shirt. I'm like, that's not what this is about.
Like, you expect that to be in the comment section from some troll.
Right. Yeah. Not, well, maybe you would get more views.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, because I think we all come into it with some sort of with confidence and a little bit of like, I guess with me, like, for instance, you know, and I do want to get back to you, by the way, with me, having been more of a wine person, you know, and again, I made cocktails for 15 years and, you know, I know liquor very well, but, you know, with me, it was always making like specialty cocktails and a lot of older classic cocktails and stuff. So one of my weak spots was really kind of the basic cocktails, like the margaritas and the daiquiris, believe it or not, because I never had to make those. Like my clientele did not drink those because I worked at a very high-end venue, and so it was all very much whiskey and wine and more of the classic New York style cocktails, which are the Manhattans and the old fashions and stuff like that. So you know, for me, it was like, damn, you like, you know, the margaritas and the daiquiris of the world, these great cocktails, but there's so much actual diversity just within those particular types of cocktails that just weren't my wheelhouse. And so, you know, I knew I had to make them, and I just I didn't feel confident initially when I made them. I was like, man, I don't know, this is not really for me. But I went ahead and did it, and, you know, you learn. You're like, all right, you know, I get it. You know, I get that's not that serious. You know what I mean? They're a little more, I guess, they're a little more nuanced than certain things like an old fashioned, because they're very strict. An old fashioned in Manhattan is pretty strict. You know, like this is what it is, and it's a smaller amount of ingredients. But, you know, when you look at margarita, you know, do you want it sweetened? Do you want it unsweetened? Do you want it agave? Or do you want simple? Do you want, you know what I'm saying? So like there are kind of these little nuance, you know, what kind of tequila do you use? Do you use an añejo? Do you use a reposado? You know, so there are different kind of ways of making these cocktails that, again, because I wasn't making them, I was like, all right, that's where I got to just strengthen up a little bit in terms of cocktail making and stuff. So, I mean, again, going back to you, we all have a little bit of something that we're a little self-conscious about maybe. And even though you didn't come into it with that, I'm sure people telling you this stuff in your head starts to make you think, oh man, you know, do I really need to do that? You know?
Yeah, it did. I mean, as far as cocktails, same wheelhouse as you. Wine, New York style cocktails, classic whiskey stuff. So I find myself trying to branch out a little bit with like tiki cocktails because I don't know a lot about the tiki cocktail world.
They're not, no.
So, I mean, that's definitely a weakness. I'm starting to put a few out there.
Yeah. And, you know, and it's fun at the same time because I love to learn, right? So like, that's the one thing I will say, like, while I was a little self-conscious about it, I'm getting really good at making margaritas now. Like I make all kind of margaritas now. And I'm like, I'm excited because I'm like, all right, cool. Like this is another, you know, notch under my belt that I'm feeling very confident about, you know? And I enjoy a good summer cocktail as much as anybody else, but it's not something I focused on in my career. So learning about it is super cool, you know. I'm glad that you decided to not listen to these people, to be honest with you, because I think it would, you know, listen, you're unbelievably talented and incredibly intelligent. And you make great cocktails, and you wouldn't want to distract from that. I mean, there's no point. And listen, look around the niche. There's nobody doing that. None of the females are doing that. You know, Jessica comes out and she kicks ass with her original stuff. And, you know, Kara from behind the bar comes and she does, you know, she's similar to you in that her knowledge base is very large when it comes to cocktails and stuff. And so, you know, if you just come out and show people you know what you're doing, no, this is not Tipsy bartender. You know, I mean, that's the facts, right? And even Tipsy stopped putting females in his videos. You know, it's not the way he started when he was exploiting women and stuff like that. So I think that, you know, we want to attract cocktail lovers, right?
That's not what you want to attract.
And the cocktail enthusiast is going to love Jen's, you know, great cocktails. If you make great cocktails, that's what they're going to remember ultimately, you know? And it's like, that's sad, right? Because I can't imagine someone saying, hey, you know, maybe you should, open your chest hair, you know, like show your shit, you know, show a little more. You know? I'm like, I'll be like, I'll do it, but you know, I'm not proud.
Right. I mean, I think that's something that as women you have to be conscious of, honestly.
Yeah.
It's a thing. Like, why are you wearing flats, or, you know, why aren't you wearing a skirt today? Or it's
unfortunate. I mean, it's unfortunate. Listen, the one thing you can say is there's definitely been progress, right? I mean, women are definitely changed the tone of the conversation big time, you know, so that's a beautiful thing. And I think this niche, you know, especially the guys in this niche, we love you girls, you know what I mean? It's just cool to have women in the niche who are unbelievably talented and are, you know, able to kind of, just make awesome cocktails that we can learn from, you know, because it's, you know, you just want talent in the niche. I watch everybody's, you know, channels hoping to learn something new and hoping to find a new cocktail, because that's the beauty of being in this niche and being an enthusiast, you know, cocktail enthusiast. Just like, I want to see what this person has to make, you know. I get excited when I see people's new videos. I do, you know, because I want to see how they make a cocktail, what cocktail they make. So Jen, so let's talk about Texas. Let's talk about Orlando, right? Those are the two places you've lived. How would you compare the cocktail culture in both places, or just the drinking culture in both places?
When I lived in Orlando, I lived downtown, so I was more in the crafty craft area.
Yeah. So
Texas, I would say, has some catching up to do, honestly.
Really?
It's hard because of COVID, there was a lot I didn't get to see. So I haven't spent that much time downtown. So maybe that's not a fair assessment. If anybody from Texas is watching, I'm sorry.
What city was it again?
Rowlett, which is about 25 minutes north of Dallas, Texas.
Okay. All right, cool. So have you spent, I mean, obviously, you weren't there that long. I mean, I imagine Dallas is where you'd probably see more of drinking, you know, culture and stuff like that, right? I mean, I don't know how big that city is that you're talking about, that you live in. I don't know what to compare it to that you would know, but it's not small. Yeah. It's just that it's more rural. So it's a lot of chain restaurants. Okay. Yeah.
There's not really any mom and pops type places or, you know, like your craft cocktail type joints. So, you know, you go here, you're going to get a margarita for sure.
Yeah.
They might have an old fashioned on the menu. But it's they're not going to have a Bucare on the menu, that's for sure. But I mean,
if they do, just steer very far away from it.
I gotta be fair here, though. I mean, I'm sure that scene is there. Dallas is much bigger than downtown.
That's what I'm saying. Dallas, I imagine Dallas, you'd be able to see that, and I'm sure they have a great drinking culture. I mean, but Texas is a big, it's a whiskey state. It's a beer state. So I think that you're probably getting more of that than you do like the craft cocktails. But I'm sure that places like Austin, we have a big young audience of people. Like that. So I'm sure out there they have a big craft cocktail. Now, at Orlando, you're saying you saw a big craft scene down in Orlando, though, where you were.
Yeah, but I also lived there my whole life, so I knew exactly where to look for it.
Okay.
I knew all the spots. Whereas here, I will know the spots now. Now that things are opening back up and I can get out of the apartment a little bit, I'll figure out the spots. And Orlando was honestly behind because I did a lot of traveling prior to that.
Okay.
So, been to London, been to Paris, been to Amsterdam, and all of them are, I'm sure you would agree, light years ahead of us as far as the cocktail scene goes.
Yeah. I mean, outside of, places like New York City or something like that,
Right. That's well, outside of New York, but as far as Orlando, I would say they're a good 5 years behind anything that New York is doing.
Yeah.
So
it is nice though to see that the cocktail culture is growing and expanding throughout the States. I mean, unfortunately, COVID obviously slowed everything down. But if YouTube is any indication, people are into cocktails. You know what I mean? And you're seeing so many more cocktail channels, and each one of them has a certain level of success and stuff. So there's definitely an audience for it somewhere. And I don't think it's all New York based. I think it's definitely, I mean, when you look at a lot of the creators, they're all over the place. They're in Canada, they're in Florida, they're in Ohio, Iowa, whatever it is. They're all over the place. England, so it's cool to see that they're all over the place, because it does indicate that I guess there's an industry for it. Not just making gin and tonics. They're making everything else. So Jen, let me ask you. So what is your goal for this? What you're doing long term? Do you feel like, I'm going to work and just kind of do this thing as a little kind of a side project, or do you have a big picture for JEN N TONIC?
Well, before getting this, my big picture was to grow it and eventually start doing some of the seminars that I was doing in person. So that's still something that I would like to do. Obviously, my focus needs to be this job that I've decided to take on. It's a big responsibility.
Yeah, it is.
And they've already tasked me with a few things. So, but I would say my goal is just to keep it going, keep growing it. And I'd like it to turn into a business eventually if I could.
And in what sense? Like, how would you like that to develop?
I would like.
What is it? How would you like it to transform into business somehow?
Originally, like I said, the seminars, and then I also was planning on selling some different syrups and bitters. I make a lot of my own bitters.
Cool.
So that's something that I would like to get into. I'm all over the place though. I'm creative. I love so many different things. There's a adorable little space next to the coffee shop that I go to all the time. Like, that would be really cute as a place, so I don't know. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah. I guess being in the business for so long and knowing so many people that own restaurants and bars and stuff like that, I remember I had that kind of idea for a long time. And, it gets, after what happened with COVID and seeing how many companies or how many cute little places like that kind of, were killed off and stuff. It's like, oh man, it's scary to think of how sensitive of a industry it is. I mean, whenever, I don't know, you obviously, I'm sure you were in the industry back in 2008 when, we were the first ones to get cut from every budget.
Yeah. And the same thing with this one.
Yeah, exactly.
We've been dealing with it way longer than everybody else.
Yeah. So, I mean, and it's a scary thing, but at the same time, it is a passion. It's something you love, and it's enticing to and I, like what you just said, I want a small little place, right?
Yeah.
In a small little place, maybe 10 seats.
I see it. Vino's place.
You know what I'm saying? Seriously, where, I got some Sinatra on and I'm sitting there and I'm talking to the guests, and it's just very old school, very mid-century style. And, just a passion project, I'd be beyond happy with something like that,
Yeah, me too. And I think there's a place for it.
There is a place.
You're right. It's hard. A lot of these places, as a lot of these restaurants, even without COVID, aren't making it past the first year.
Yeah.
But people want that stuff, I mean, I look for it. I don't want to just go to chain restaurants. I mean, they're great because you've got the consistency, right? But that's not what I want to go to. I want to support the local guy.
Yeah. Yeah. It is also a different opportunity to socialize in those kind of places too. When you go to a small bar or a small restaurant, you get to really conversate sometimes with the owner or with or the wait staff or someone that you could, because is a little more intimate. Mm-hmm. I love that. I mean, I'm doing the show, right? So I love talking to people. I love to communicate. I love to socialize. It's the thing I miss most about the last year and a half is the lack of ability to really, be in that social environment that I feel very comfortable in. Mm-hmm. But fortunately with this whole YouTube thing, I've been able to really get to know a lot of the guys and gals in the niche. And, we do these Discords and I do the pub crawls and, we do some other things and stuff like that. So that's fun. It's been great to not only get to talk to people who are like-minded, we all have literally the same, frame of mind when it comes to, making cocktails on YouTube. So that's always cool. It's not limited to that, but it's nice to know that we have that in common, So Jen, we were talking a little bit about blind spots in terms of that kind of tiki cocktails and stuff like that. Is there something specific though that you really say to yourself, I really need to get better at that? I like mine is, your Amari's. That's one thing for me that I am sorely lacking. I have Amari, but it's something I don't feel terribly comfortable discussing.
Rum. Yeah.
Really?
I mean, I love all the whiskeys. Mm-hmm. I drink them all. Yeah. Scotch, Irish, I love them. Uh-huh. But, and what I've learned is that I really enjoy aged rum because a lot of times there's some similarities that can be drawn. Big time. But I think I was a little scared for a long time because I had it in my mind, which is stupid, but I had it in my mind that it's made with sugar cane. So it's going to give me a headache. It's really, I mean, I look back and I'm like, but so I never really developed it, and so I have ones that I go to, the Appleton is one, Florida Cania is another that I go to for, like my silver stuff, but they do great aged rums too. So I'm just, and I know there's so many different types and there's, they're depending on where they're from in the world and what the rules are there, just like wine or anything else. That would be my weak spot. It is. I mean, it's actually incredibly complex if you really want to break it down, not just the three colors, I guess you want to call them, white, gold, and añejo. There's just dark, whatever. There's just each one of them is just made in a different style. The different islands kind of have produced different types of, the Jamaican ones are very funky and stuff, and some of them have more of a petrol taste and stuff. So it's definitely something that. And then the dark ones you can get some like this añejo here, the Gran Añejo from Puerto Rico. Like that's an incredible sipping rum. So delicious. I mean, that's what I'm drinking right now, just on the rocks. I mean, you could definitely get those distinct flavor profiles like you would with a whiskey. It's not as it's not like whiskey in the sense that whiskey to me is a mouthful. Whiskey's a mouthful, and I love that. Rum isn't ever going to feel that way, but it's definitely going to have a lot of complexity in it. That's going to make it exciting and stuff. So that I love rum. Rum and whiskey are definitely the two spirits that I know best. I would say tequila is something that I know well, but not my super duper strength and stuff like that. I never care for tequila. Is that something you're a big tequila fan? I like tequila. Yeah. It's not so. I drink whiskey the most, and I drink a lot of vodka. I know there's a lot of vodka hate on some of these channels.
I'm completely indifferent to vodka. I don't hate it. It's fine.
I think it's funny because if you were to do a side-by-side of a lot of these vodkas that are supposed to supposedly be, flavorless and scentless.
Oh, when you do a side-by-side, forget about it. And the thing also with my biggest thing that I always had a kick out of doing was not so much to show people that vodka does have flavors, but also just to show that the quality of vodka is completely bullshit when it comes to pricing. It's not equal. Like, Grey Goose gets a really bad rap. It's not a tremendous vodka, but always like, oh, Grey Goose is a piece of shit. It goes with like this. I can name 10 other vodkas that are just as expensive that are not worth it either. You know what I'm saying? It's there's this this guy, I think it was New York Magazine or New York Times, had a vodka like sommelier or whatever like that, you know. And they sat him down with some great vodkas and some bad vodkas, and he ended up picking like the thing that came in like a 4-gallon jug as his favorite vodka. He was surprised. He's like, "Holy cow!"
That's funny.
I mean, you just don't know. I mean, it's the, you know, they're charging you for the distillation, right? You're like, oh yeah, 10 times distilled and this, that, and the third. That's what you're paying another $20 for.
Right. That and the marketing.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's marketing too. That's all marketing.
Yeah.
I know it's actually distilled that much, but it's really just marketing. I mean, you get to a certain point where it's so clear that it doesn't even make a difference anymore. You know, all you're really trying to do is take out as much flavor as possible. Sometimes a little bit of flavor is not a bad thing.
I agree.
You know, I like Kettle One and Belvedere are probably my two go-to cocktails, but I don't drink vodka neat, so I couldn't tell you.
I like Kettle.
Yeah, Kettle and Belvedere are my two favorites. I don't know if I have a favorite between them. I like both of them equally. You know, but I don't drink vodka neat. You know, I don't drink vodka martinis. You know, I usually drink a gin martini if I drink gin martinis. So for me, it's not really that serious. For me, it's a mixer most of the time. So I don't really, you know, it could be a $10 vodka.
Right.
It's probably going to be fine if it's mixed in with a bunch of juices anyway, you know?
Well, that's true. You're not going to really be able to taste it. I am a big fan of, if it's been a really hard day, I will come home and I will make just a straight up kettle with a twist.
Really? Wow.
And after about half of it, I'm like, all right, I can do this again.
All right. So Jen, one thing before we go, I mean, you keep talking about whiskey. What's your preference? Like in terms of this, is it bourbon? Is it rye? Is it you know, Scotch? What's your whiskey preference?
It is a hard 50-50 between rye and Scotch. But not, really. I can't handle the peaty Scotches still. I mean, I keep trying them.
Yeah. Rob from Home's Bar. That's Rob's Home Bar. That's his love. He loves that.
He loves it.
Smoky peaty Isla stuff. It's not for me. It's something that's intriguing in terms of like when you sip it, you're like, oh wow, like that's crazy. All that, you know, that like flavor bomb in your mouth. But I can't do more than like a couple sips of that stuff. It's not.
It just stays with me way too long afterwards. But I continue to taste it because I'm a big believer. Same thing with Sauvignon Blanc. I'm not a big fan of New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc because I really hate grapefruit.
This conversation was going so well.
Shut the computer down. Do you love it?
Love New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. Absolutely. From right off the Marlboro. I'd go there and just pick the bottles if I could myself. I love it. It depends where, I mean, you know, where I'm having it or under what circumstances I'm having it.
Sure.
So, you know, I'm not gonna, you know, obviously, you want to pair it appropriately and stuff like that, but it's just something that I drink. I often drink wine by itself.
Yeah. So
it's just such a great wine to just have while I'm just sitting down, you know, editing or watching TV and stuff like that. I just find it so pleasant. I love it. So what's your preference on white wine then?
I love Albarino. And I'll drink.
I can't argue with that.
I'll drink like a California Sauvignon Blanc if it's got some oak on it. It's just
really,
that unoaked.
You like oak wine?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, like oaky wine or oak
no, like oaked.
Talk about
no, oaked Sauvignon Blanc because you know typically a Sauvignon Blanc from California has experienced a little bit of oak. It's just the style for the most part. That's the style.
You know, because Cali for a long time was notorious for horribly oaky wines. You know?
They're taking it too far.
That's what I'm saying. So I was like, oh wait,
no, not like that.
Because then I really was going to close the laptop.
Yeah, it's over. No, I'm more of a old world wine gal.
I am.
In general.
My favorite wine is Burgundy. 100%. I am obsessed with Burgundy. Super expensive, super hard to get, and like a total treat. But if I can get a good Burgundy, I absolutely adore it. And then on the flip side is Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand. So like it's super old world, mega expensive red, and you know really cheap, you know, new world whites and stuff like that. So
and mine would be Amarone. So
Amarone, that's your favorite red? Do you like so you drink a lot of red, Italian red? You said that was your thing.
Italian red. Yeah, I love that. I love the like the Super Tuscans too.
Yeah, I love
like Teen and Yellow. I'm sure you've had by Antinori. That one.
Yeah. Jen, thanks so much. This is absolutely fantastic. Wait, one more thing. Wait, why wasn't bourbon part of that 50-50? Why is it not?
It's a little too sweet.
Is it? Okay. I just want to, all right,
yeah.
I just got,
it's a little too sweet.
That hit me out of nowhere. I was like, wait a second. Bourbon's like the best thing ever, dude.
It's all right. Wait, who is it that loves Bullet? Is it you?
Yeah, that's my shit, man.
Yeah.
I just
Bullet's
bought a new
sweet,
bottle.
though.
It's not as sweet, but it's still sweet.
Yeah.
It's still sweet. I mean, if you got a palate for this stuff, you know it's still sweet. It's just I love it. It's so good. It's so absolutely fantastic. It has a rye component to it, which I think is what you probably would appreciate. Anyway, we can talk about bourbon.
Yeah, we could take that offline. Nerd out on some wine.
So Jenna, listen, thanks so much for being on the show. You know, let people know where they can find you. Obviously on YouTube. Do you have, let them know about your Instagrams or anything else like that?
Yeah, so you can find me at JEN N TONIC on YouTube, as well as over on Instagram. It's one and then JEN N TONIC. And that's it. Thank you so much for having me on your show today, Dino.
Of course, it's been so fun to have you on. And guys, this is the last show for this season, and it's been awesome having all these guests on, these awesome people. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I'll be back in maybe a month or so with season 2, and I've got some great guests lined up. So stick around, and we are gonna boogie down. Ciao.